It's been more than 30 years since the Hubble Space Telescope was launched in the space. It's been orbiting our planet in the lower orbit and has captured more than 1 million photographs. Just like the Hubble, there are a lot of other space telescopes, for example the Kepler, which is currently out of order. Such telescopes are always in search of different solar systems, planets, galaxies, nebulas, dwarf stars, etc. And hence, to take the research to a new level, the James Webb Space Telescope was invented. This is a next generation space telescope, and hence it is the most powerful space telescope that ever existed. It was named after James Edwin Webb, who was an American government official. He served as the second appointed administrator of NASA from February 14, 1961 to October 7, 1968. The project started in the year 1996 as the Next Generation Space Telescope and was later named as James Webb Space Telescope. The Webb weighs about 6.2 tons, which is around half the weight in comparison to the Hubble, which weighs around 12.2 tons if it lands on Earth today. The reason behind being so lightweight is the primary construction of this huge structure, which is mainly made up of graphite composite. Graphite composite is the material of choice for application where lightweight and superior performance is paramount, such as components for spacecrafts, fighter aircrafts, and race cars. The Webb is designed in such a way that it can detect the infrared radiation emitted by the faraway galaxies. It is equipped with numerous infrared sensors to capture the best possible images of the cosmos. But in order to do that, the telescope itself have to be extremely cold, or else all the infrared light emitted by the telescope itself is sufficient to outshine its targets, and hence it wouldn't be able to see anything. The primary mirror, which consists of 18 hexagonal sections, is gold-coated beryllium, which has to be cooled down to about negative 220 degrees Celsius, which is achieved by keeping the telescope facing away from the sun behind its 5 layers of sun shielding, and additional liquid helium cryocooler is also on board to reach the required negative temperatures. Each layer of the sun shield is made up of Krypton, which is a commercially available polyimide film. It is as thin as a human hair. This film is coated with aluminium on both the sides and is doped silicon on the 2 layers, which will be facing the sun, so it can reflect most of the sun's radiation back into space. The delicate film is the reason for the failure in the 2018 shield deployment test, where the cables that pull the sun shield into place had too much slack, leading to a snagging hazard and 7 small tears forming within the shield's 5 independent membranes. The largest 2 holes were about 4 inches across. The initial cost in 1997 was about $500 million. Then in 1998, it was doubled to $1 billion. In 2006, it was around $4.5 billion. Then the whole project went under a preliminary design review in 2008, and the cost was around $5.1 billion. Later in 2010, it went under a major critical design review, and the cost was about $6.5 billion. And so on, it kept growing until today, as in 2020, it costs about $10 billion, which is 20 times of its initial price in 1997. Here's a comparison between the Webb and other space telescope prices in US dollars. The Hubble initial cost was about $400 million. By the time of launch, it was around $4.7 billion. And 20 years later, after the launch, it had a price tag of $10 billion in 2010. The Kepler Space Telescope costs around $640 million at the time of its launch in 2009. The Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS, costs around $200 million during its launch, which is way less than any of the above mentioned space telescopes. The Spitzer telescope had a price tag of about $776 million during its launch back in 2003. The Compton Gamma Ray Observatory, which was designed to detect the gamma rays emitted in the cosmos by different galaxies, stars, etc., had a costing of about $617 million during its launch in 1991. There are a lot of other space telescopes which have been launched all around the globe and discovered different types of galaxies, stars, planets, etc. Lately, launch of the Webb was set in the month of March 2021, which has been delayed once again and is expected in October 2021, as of NASA is still not completely locked onto the October launch date, as the testing of the telescope is consuming way more time than expected. When the James Webb Space Telescope will be launched in space, it will take nearly a month to properly deploy and lock itself in the halo orbit, which is about 1.5 million kilometers away from the Earth, so that no infrared radiation from the Earth or Moon could cause any disturbance in the infrared readings of the telescope. Being in a halo orbit means the Webb will be orbiting the Sun just like planets. Its massive shield will be facing the Sun, and the huge primary mirror will be reflecting all the infrared radiation by adjusting its gold-plated beryllium hexagonal sections on its sensing parts, forming an image which will be processed by its computing unit and sent back to Earth. The Webb is designed to complete its mission in space in about 5 years, but it has enough fuel for its thrusters to work for 10 years, which is the actual goal of the scientists. If anything goes wrong with this space telescope, the possibilities of repairing it in space is negligible, and hence it's going under tests like placing it in a giant vacuum chamber and dropping the temperature to about -273 degrees Celsius to simulate the extreme space environment. The Webb will be kept in the vacuum chamber for about 90 days, out of which it would take about 30 days to just cool down by radiating its heat, as there is negligible air molecules in the huge vacuum chamber. Before approving it for the vacuum test, it would be exposed to really high values of sounds, about 120 to 130 decibels from 20 Hz to 2800 Hz, to simulate the extreme loud noise created by the rocket thrusters. Sounds of these levels are greater than jet engines. The Webb must also pass the G-force test in order to survive the extreme G-force created by the rockets during the time of liftoff. Any failures detected in these tests can be fixed, but if something major goes wrong after the liftoff, then all the efforts of more than 20 years and about $10 billion would be a serious loss, disappointment, and a great fall for the whole planet. Here are some highlights of how this huge 4-story telescope would deploy in space. Around 30 minutes after the launch, first, the solar array will deploy to provide electrical energy to the Webb. Then the very first mid-course correction will be made using its thrusters. Now the antenna will be deployed. The front sun shield frame will be released. Now the tower with its huge folded primary mirror will start rising. On the 5th day, the covers of the membrane will be released for shield deployment. In about a day, the shield would be ready for tensioning. Next, the liquid helium cryocooler will start the cooling process. Also, the secondary mirror will be deployed and set right in front of the primary mirror. Wing deployment starts on the 12th day. Then, in about 3 days, the whole 18 sections are integrated to form one giant mirror. Now, all the main components of the telescope would be completely deployed and developed. Now, at this point, the Webb will just cool itself down to its working temperature until it reaches its destination, the halo orbit, in the next 15 days. Here's a small representation of how the James Webb Space Telescope would be launched, but without all the talking. 30 days after the launch, this beautiful machine will be ready to send us the amazing photographs of our amazing cosmos. If you liked this video, then please share this video with your family, friends and colleagues. And if you heard my voice for the first time, then do subscribe to my channel for new upcoming videos. And as always, thanks for watching.